This is week 203 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and Moscow is going all in. Those are the words of Deputy Energy Minister Mykola Kolesnik. He said Russia is going all in on its effort to destroy Ukraine's energy infrastructure. I'm Anna Belliker, reporting to you from Kyiv. This week, we're diving into the story of this winter and how we got into the dire energy situation that we're in right now. Russia's winter strategy has evolved, and it's pushed Ukraine's energy grid to its brink. Moscow has committed to plunging the country into darkness, relentlessly targeting the country's energy infrastructure since October of 2022. Last winter, Ukrainians were spared by unusually high temperatures, with Kyiv experiencing one of the warmest winters since 1881. But today, as temperatures dip to near or below 0 degrees Fahrenheit throughout Ukraine, Russia's strategy may be paying off as the fragile energy grid appears close to collapse. After recent attacks on Kyiv, 70% of the capital was left without electricity. Now, this doesn't only mean no lights in homes, but for many, no water or heating as well. But to get to this moment, it took many years of Russian strikes on the energy grid. If we were to pinpoint a starting point to this recent escalation, it would be the October 3rd attack on Ukraine's natural gas network. Russia launched 35 missiles and 60 drones at gas facilities in the East's Kharkiv and Poltava oblasts. Now, these strikes destroyed 60% of Ukraine's gas production ahead of this winter. And it did not stop there. Moscow's strategy then moved oblast by oblast, with electricity substations being targeted and destroyed. Our reporter Katerina Hodunova traveled to Chernihiv Oblast in November to see this for herself.
We are driving towards the northern border of Ukraine, closer to Russia and Belarus, to one of the energy facilities that were recently hit by Russia, to see how energy workers deal with this constant Russian threat.
Ну, по-перше, ми стараємось, є застосунки у нас скачані, тобто ми перед тим, як розпочати роботу, дивимося, оцінюємо безпекову ситуацію. Коли вже є 100% гарантія, що мої колеги будуть живі та здорові, не будуть наражатися на небезпеку, тоді працюємо. З'являється якась небезпека, попереджаю персонал, що буде, то й буде. Свою роботу, я думаю, ми не покинемо. Як працювали, так і будемо працювати. Хотілося б, звичайно, щоб весь цей кошмар взагалі припинився, взагалі повністю. Щоб ми змогли спокійно відновити пошкоджене. Я не знаю, наперед, я так далеко не дивлюсь наперед, я ж говорю. Будемо підлаштовуватись до обставин. Будуть аварії, пошкодження, будемо по можливості їх ліквідовувати.
And now we have to work really quickly because there are 3 shaheds approaching this energy site and there is a risk of another hit. This is how it looks like after a direct hit of a Shahed-type drone. We can see smoke is rising just from this substation. Everything is covered with oil. It's really dirty here and smells like something just got burned. I've never seen damage like this from a direct hit of a drone.
Для нашої енергетики найболючішими саме є удари такі прямі по підстанціям, коли пошкоджується основне силове електрообладнання, і одним з такого обладнання є силовий трансформатор. Оскільки їх в аварійному запасі, там і взагалі на складах немає такої кількості, як вони знищують, тому що обстріли щоденно, і щоденно може бути пошкоджена і не одна підстанція. Раніше вони і атакували наші об'єкти, вони, можна сказати, не атакували. Мінімальні атаки були, це якщо ми говоримо там про попередні роки, то зараз прицільно знищуються наші підстанції, які забезпечують живлення вже цілих міст і районів. І ці атаки є, ще раз повторюсь, прицільними, відбуваються після цих атак ще повторні обстріли. Даний об'єкт був зруйнований вчора, він вчора двічі піддавався обстрілу, і сьогодні також вже сюди летіли дрони для завдання ударів. Ті військові, які чергують поряд з нами, вони моніторять безпекову ситуацію в повітрі і у разі наближення вже на незначну відстань шахедів або інших літальних апаратів, які можуть завдати ударів по об'єкту, подають сигнал про те, що необхідно покинути територію підстанції. Тому такі от саме ситуації призводять до того, що тривалість відновлення електропостачання споживачів може бути досить тривалою.
Тривало, ми говоримо це про дні, тижні.
Це можуть бути, на жаль, і дні, і навіть і тижні, тому що ситуація дуже, скажімо так, погана.
Все, тікаємо.
To keep its cities powered and to keep the country going, Ukraine needs to find a way how to defend itself from such devastating but successful Russian strikes.
Across Ukraine, dozens of these substations form the invisible backbone of the country's power grid. And the Kremlin's military has become more and more successful at targeting and destroying this critical piece of infrastructure. So, what exactly is a substation? Well, a substation takes the high-voltage electricity from power plants and then converts it into levels that are safe for use in homes and businesses. So this is where your electricity that powers your daily life comes from. And there's a good reason why Russia started targeting them alongside its relentless assaults on power stations. Power plants themselves are high-value critical infrastructure. There's only so many of them, and their importance is near existential to a modern nation. This means that they're either heavily defended, or in the case of such facilities as hydroelectric dams, they're extremely robust and thus difficult to destroy. Though not impossible, as we saw with the Kakhovka Dam, which caused mass flooding and ecological devastation in 2023. Ukraine also heavily relies on nuclear plants, which provide half of the country's energy. Now, attacking nuclear plants poses obvious dangers not only to Ukraine, but to all of Europe, as was the case after the 1984 Chernobyl disaster, when radioactive contamination spread across 40% of Europe, from Sweden all the way to Iceland. But substations? They're softer targets with no risk of nuclear fallout. There are dozens scattered throughout the country that need guarding and are, monetarily speaking at least, less valuable than, say, a power plant itself. So, for Russia, it's like blowing up individual mail trucks rather than the entire post office. But it requires less firepower, using inexpensive drones rather than ballistic missiles, and thus is a cheaper, and yet still very effective, strategy. And for Ukraine, it's forced into a predicament. On the one hand, allocate expensive, high-tech air defense to guard dozens of low-cost but vital mail trucks, figuratively speaking. Or, on the other hand, protect the critical post offices, but be chipped apart, bit by bit. And, unfortunately, as we're going to go into in a moment, Ukraine has to do both. I want to take a moment to remind you that we're a reader-funded news outlet, meaning that shows like this are only made possible by viewers like you. If you'd like to join our community of more than 25,000 members, there will be a link to our membership page in the description below. I'd also like to thank everyone who donates directly via YouTube. Your support is greatly appreciated. For more on the impact of this strategy, I'm joined by our business reporter Dominic Culverwell. Dominic, you recently visited a power station that had been attacked, and what did that tell you about how this crisis is playing out?
Yes, I went to a thermal power plant operated by DTEC, the country's largest private energy producer. I went there in December, and I mean, it was like an apocalyptic sight. Even when we just pulled up in the car, the parking lot, there was just like 4 burnt out cars from attacks that occurred in October. There was bits of missile fragments. And the plant itself, it was just like a skeleton of its former self. I mean, it looked like it was just hanging there by a thread. It was truly horrific to see. And yet the energy workers are going there every day to repair. And sometimes energy workers are targeted and killed as well. And the attacks have just become a lot more precise and more numerous. So previously in Russia's campaigns against Ukraine's energy facilities, they would use drones and missiles, but not to the same level as what we're seeing now, because Russia's been able to produce domestically its own drones. So it can launch 40, 50 drones at one plant, plus 6, 7, or a dozen missiles as well. And not even the air defense at the plants can combat that. I mean, Patriots are the only ones that can shoot down ballistic missiles, Patriot air defense. So when a ballistic missile is coming towards your plant, there's not much you can do.
Mm-hmm. And how is this playing out across the country? What are sort of the regional differences, and how is Russia's strategy affecting the country as a whole?
It's really interesting to see this geographically. It's very different from previous campaigns in 22, 23. What we're seeing now is that central and eastern Ukraine are much more vulnerable. So the power generation there has been really hard hit. They are reliant, these cities in the central and east, they're much more reliant on nuclear plants, nuclear generation, which now makes up the brunt of Ukraine's energy production, which are located in western Ukraine. Now, Russia isn't hitting nuclear power plants yet, and hopefully it never will, because it will just be Chornobyl 2.0, which no one wants. But this nuclear plant is generating energy, which is then transported via power lines to central and eastern Ukraine. Now, Russia is hitting those power lines that transport the electricity as well. So it's trying to cut off these regions from the west where most of the power generation is. Now, why is it doing that? Because eastern and central Ukraine, they have much higher populations in the cities. They're closer to the front line, and they're more industrialized as well. So most of Ukraine's industrial power, its steel factories are located in central and eastern regions. It's also the regions we saw really bad power outages in border regions as well. We're going back even in November now, October. Now, border regions such as Sumy, there's intensive fighting with Russians along there. When you cut off power in communities on those border regions, people are more likely to flee, to leave. They're going to go to cities like Kyiv or to Kharkiv. Then you have those cities cut off from power as well. You create like an internal IDP refugee crisis with people migrating across the country. And we're already seeing now people leaving cities like Kyiv and moving, even to villages or to western parts of Ukraine where the situation is better. Possibly there could even be another refugee crisis in Europe with more Ukrainians leaving and fleeing to Slovakia, to Poland, to Hungary to just get out.
I mean, displacement aside, the blow to morale must just be...
It's horrible. It's really, really horrendous. It's you feel it when you're just walking through the streets. You have supermarkets have been closed for days in some cases. People don't have heating. They don't have electricity. They can't cook from home. I was even in a restaurant the other day, and the pipes, it seemed, just broke in there, and the water just started coming down from the ceiling. I mean, you feel like you're in a city that's just on the verge of collapsing at times. Plus, you have generators which are keeping businesses and homes alive, but the pollution from them, I mean, it sticks to the back of your throat. It's really horrible. And at the same time, the morale for the energy workers. These are guys who are going out in Arctic conditions. They are repairing the sites, breaking through ice to repair power lines, going to plants, and working outside, knowing that soon Russia will just hit those targets again. It's this endless cycle. And we know that there's going to be an end, that the winter will be over, but in this time, it just feels incredibly difficult to keep going.
And so, if you could summarize for everyone in one sentence, how bad is it right now?
In one sentence, I would have to say on the edge, but we will make it.
While Ukraine races to restore electricity throughout the country, one significant problem is that the tools needed for those repairs are running out. Even if repairs are possible, the situation can deteriorate further at any moment as additional attacks inevitably come. Warehouse stocks of critical equipment are shrinking, and to make matters worse, the recent scandal around Energoatom revealed that Ukraine's nuclear energy provider sought to exploit wartime contracts intended, in part, for repairs and defensive fortifications of substations and power lines connecting plants to the grid. According to the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, who investigated the matter, the company forced kickbacks of 10 to 15% from their contractors, or they risked not getting paid or being barred from supplying to the company. So as a result, defensive fortifications were delayed, helping push Ukraine to the brink of the all-out energy crisis we're in today. Analysts warn that if no changes are made, Ukraine could face a serious shortage of recovery resources as early as this spring. But before spring comes, there's still winter to contend with. As winter began, we saw Moscow's strategy coming into play in regions closer to the front, like Chernihiv Oblast. As strikes intensified, whole neighborhoods went days without electricity. But today, it's moved further west to the nation's capital, Kyiv. On his Telegram channel this week, Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko advised residents to temporarily leave the city if they can. Temperatures over the next few weeks are forecasted to get as low as -22 Celsius. That's -8 degrees for the Americans watching. Emergency power outages and interruptions to water supply and heating are rampant throughout the city, which was once comparable in size and population to Chicago or Athens, Greece. So, what are the residents of Kyiv and its suburbs doing to survive this crisis if they're either unable or unwilling to leave their homes? Our reporter Tanya Meronishina has ventured into the cold for more on this.
Russia has been repeatedly targeting Kyiv's energy infrastructure in the days when temperatures fall up to -20 degrees. After the last strike overnight, 70% of buildings remained without electricity and 500 residential buildings are without heating. Here is one of the points of invincibility on the left bank. Here people can charge their phones, warm up with hot drinks, eat something, and just spend some time with electricity.
Нема світла. Вчора весь день не було, сьогодні теж зранку я прокинулась, світла не було. За ніч у мене не встигло нічого зарядитись, тому я тут намагаюсь зробити своє домашнє завдання. Ми навчаємося онлайн, але у багатьох немає доступу до інтернету, тому уроків у нас також немає.
Дуже важко в цій ситуації жити. Ну нічого, ми кріпимося, переможемо, і все буде добре. Як там пишуть, там 7 понеділків залишилося до весни, а там буде хорошо.
Це одна з їхніх тактик. Вони думають, що ми впадемо духом, станемо слабшими, але я вважаю, що важливо дуже триматися зараз разом і в будь-якому випадку краще без світла, ніж під прапором Росії.
We are now in Vasilkiv. It's approximately 30 kilometers or 18 miles from the capital. We came here to visit an invincibility train. It's a real train, but it doesn't go anywhere and instead provides people with some basic but literally life-saving needs like hot water or heating.
Працюю в Укрзалізниці, провідник пасажирських вагонів. Робота відрізняється в тому, що ми стоїмо на місці, але приходить дуже багато різних людей, які можуть у нас зігрітися, випити чаю, зарядити телефони, відпочити. Ось тут у нас Starlink є, павербанк великий, як він, екофло. Це тут дитяче купе.
Що це саме?
Тобі тут подобається? Тебе тепленько вдома чи холодно? Тепленько? А світло є чи нема? Нема світла?
Зараз приходиш, але вона зараз вже далеко від базара, а то жила прямо біля.
У вас дуже гарний настрій. Розкажіть, будь ласка, що вас тримає в цей час, коли так холодно і постійні обстріли?
Підтримуємо один одного, дружимо, підбадьорюємо, намагаємось шуткувати по ситуації. Нам лише треба підтримувати хлопців, які зараз в окопах в мінус 17 нас захищають, щоб ми могли прийти і випити гарячої кави.
Ця біда згуртовує людей, по-перше, дуже сильно.
Давно такої зими не було, да?
Дуже давно.
Да, що мороз такий.
Ми виживемо, так?
Звісно, Валя, виживемо.
Ми зовсім виживемо, бо нам...
Ми залізні люди, знаєте, як кажуть залізничники, залізні люди. Із сталі.
Ви нас запитуєте, як для нас. У нас вже є все, безперебійне тепло.
Да. Лучше, ніж вдома.
Дома хуже.
Дома
да.
холодина, в
Дома
халаті,
немає
під
нічого.
двома одіялами.
Воду зливають.
Тут, извините, в шортах хожу. Серьезно говорю, пассажиры так смотрят. В шортах.
Дрова привезли, вугілля
Да.
є, все. Так що приїжджайте, якщо у вас в Америці холодно, приїжджайте до нас гріться.
People have already been through this. They are so adaptive. They're holding on, but everyone admits that the winter is the worst since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, and the situation is really tough. And the fear is that it's just the beginning because half of the winter is still ahead. And winter itself is merciless. What could have been a winter miracle with real snow and Christmas trees turned into a disaster.
I want to take a moment and just bring you back to November 23rd, 2022. Russia launched a massive barrage of 70 missiles that day. And the result? For the first time in 40 years, the entire nuclear sector went offline. 3 of the country's 4 nuclear power plants shut down. And the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant was also forced to operate on emergency generators. The thermal and hydroelectric stations across the country also went dark, causing many Ukrainian cities, including Kyiv, to lose power. Since that day, Russia hasn't been able to recreate a collapse on that scale, despite trying their hardest. But this year, fears are that they're terrifyingly close to making that happen again. Russia has expanded its drone and missile stockpiles substantially, while Ukraine's dwindling air defense arsenal has been subject to the erratic decision-making of the Trump administration. The Security Service of Ukraine has gathered evidence that Russia's attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure amount to crimes against humanity. According to the SBU, Russian forces have targeted 11 hydroelectric power plants, 45 major combined heat and power plants, 49 thermal power plants, and 151 electrical substations across the country since October of 2025. I really want to bring you better news, but as Mayor Klitschko stressed earlier this week, we need to speak with honesty about the situation. Klitschko wrote on Telegram, "This is the first time in 4 years of full-scale war that we have seen a situation on this magnitude." And for his part, President Volodymyr Zelensky has declared a state of emergency in the energy sector. A permanent coordination headquarters has been established between authorities and energy providers. Ukraine is also reaching out to foreign partners to procure equipment and boost energy imports. In the meantime, Russia is disturbingly close to achieving its goal, forcing Ukrainians to face the winter under constant attacks, cold, and in near total darkness.
Hi, my name is Katerina Denisova. I am a Kyiv independent reporter with the National Desk. Over the past week, we received a number of questions from our members, so I'm here to answer one of them. Our member Malcolm asks, what's up with Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko? I subscribe to his Telegram channel, but he seems very hostile to Zelensky, and the central government seems pretty unhelpful overall. Answering this question, Klitschko was hostile towards Zelensky because Zelensky had been hostile toward Klitschko over the lack of Kyiv's preparation to the energy crisis. However, the way the mayor and Zelensky communicate is not new. They have been in an open political conflict since Zelensky took office in 2019. And this is something about power struggle and the president's desire to influence Kyiv, the capital, Ukraine's biggest city. And from time to time, he finds reasons to publicly criticize Klitschko. But the mayor should not be seen as a victim here, because despite his popularity abroad, he often faces criticism from the Kyiv residents, for example, over the illegal construction in the city, over his corrupt inner circle, and the way he handles the city overall. Unfortunately, the latest round of their standoff is taking place amid a dire energy crisis in Kyiv, and this blame game, who failed to prepare the city for this winter, does not improve the situation at all. I think that a large share of responsibility and mismanagement is on Klitschko's part, considering the fact that he had 4 years of the full-scale war to prepare for such scenario. But on the other hand, I think that the central government also had to take the full charge of the preparations for this kind of winter, fully being aware that Russia's main goal over the years has been to destroy Ukraine's energy grid.
That's all for this week. We'll be back next Sunday with more news from Ukraine. If you appreciated this video, please consider becoming a member of the Kyiv Independent community. It's thanks to viewers like you that we can do this work, and we're so grateful for your support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.